Hi, and welcome back to another cooking show. You know, being part German, it's left me with two desires I have a hard time controlling. One, drinking beer. Two, invading France. Now, I don't exactly have an army, so I might as well just make do with beer. But you know what? Sometimes you want something with your beer, and what goes better than pretzels? Now, I'm sure you probably have some of these little guys waiting around your pantry, and that's great, but what I really want are some authentic, soft German pretzels. And your options are kind of limited. Some cities you can find a street vendor, you could go to a mall kiosk, or maybe if you're lucky you can find them in the grocery store, but those have been frozen and honestly they're not really that good. So you know what? Let's make some. I'm Bill. This is Bacon, and today we're making pretzels. Okay, our first step is going to be to get the yeast going. With dried yeast you want to bloom it, just to make sure it's still okay. So for this recipe we're going to start with 2 tablespoons of dried yeast, 2 tablespoons of butter that we've cubed up, 1 heaping tablespoon of salt, and 1 tablespoon of brown sugar. And we'll top that off with 2 cups of warm water. And now we're going to let this sit for about 15 minutes and make sure it blooms up nice. Okay, and it's been 15 minutes, and as you can see the yeast has foamed up and built this head of bubbles on the surface, and that's exactly what we want to see. This means the yeast is active and we're going to get a good rise. So I'm going to put this in to the mixer, and we're going to add immediately 3 cups of flour. We'll fit our mixer with the dough hook. Lift her up and get her started. And as she comes together, we're going to slowly add another 2.5 cups of flour. And we're going to let this continue to mix and come together. It should take just a couple minutes. After you're done kneading, it should have a pretty smooth, not perfect, but a pretty smooth surface. Go ahead and let that sit in the bowl. Cover it with a damp towel. We're going to let it rise for half an hour. After half an hour, it's double in size. So we're going to have to punch it down. Simply pretend it's an obnoxious hipster. Give it a punch. It'll deflate a bit. We're going to turn it out. Give it a quick little knead. And we're almost ready to cut. Now what you're going to want to do is divide this into pieces. We're just going to do it 1 piece at a time so that we don't have to worry about the dough drying off. Just take a pizza cutter, cut off a hunk of dough, go ahead and cover your loaf. We're going to want to roll this out to almost 2 feet long. Depending on where you cut from, you might not get it as long, and that's okay. Let's get it thin enough to work with. Now you're going to go ahead and twist your pretzel. Just make a U. turn it once, and fold it over. It'll help to have a little bit of water in case it starts getting dry to help seal the seams. Go ahead, set this aside. We're going to continue with the rest of the dough. Once they're all rolled out, we're going to let these rise for another 10 to 15 minutes, and then park them in the refrigerator for at least an hour, preferably overnight, in order to allow the yeast flavors to develop. Okay, so we're going to preheat the oven now to 425 degrees and get ready to bake. But before we bake these pretzels, there's another step. Have you ever noticed that a pretzel has a nice, deep, dark brown exterior, but white and crisp and not burnt at all on the inside? Well, if you've ever baked bread before, you probably know that that really doesn't happen in an oven, so there's something else we have to do. And that something is soak our pretzels in drain cleaner. Okay, now I'm only half serious when I say we're going to soak it in drain cleaner. If you went to your hardware store, bought drain cleaner, soaked your pretzels and then baked them, you might end up sick or dead. What we are going to use though is sodium hydroxide, also known as lye. Now you want to be careful when you buy this. You're probably going to have to go online and you're going to want to look for food grade sodium hydroxide. This is pure, it doesn't have any heavy metals in it. You can find it, it's usually used for either making pretzels or making soap, and of course cleaning drains. What we're going to start with is in a non-reactive stainless steel bowls. Oh, and another word on safety, make sure you're wearing gloves and make sure you have some eye protection. Now we're going to use a stainless steel bowl. You could also use heavy plastic, but you want something non-reactive. Glass can also work, but over time lye can etch glass and could ruin your glass bowl. But stainless steel or a good hard plastic would be great. We're going to take our lye, 5 cups of water and 1/4 cup, and we're slowly going to mix this in. And we're going to just keep stirring until all of it's been dissolved. Now if you feel your bowl right now, you'll notice it's gotten warm. That's just something that happens. That's also why we add the lye to the water and not the water to the lye. If you add the water to the lye, it could flash boil, possibly explode, and make a real mess of things. But now we know it's fully dissolved. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by taking one of the pretzels we rolled. I'm going to put it on a spider. I'm using a plastic one. We're going to submerge it in the lye for about 30 seconds. Now we're going to pick it up, let it drain a little bit, and put it onto a cookie sheet that's lined with parchment paper. We're going to do this for all the pretzels we got. Now something to notice, if you can't tell comparing this one we dunk and this one we haven't, you'll notice that this is starting to turn yellow. That's good. That means that the reaction we want that's going to turn this nice and brown has already started. Keep in mind that's a chemical burn, which again is why we're using gloves and wearing protection, because if this got on your skin, you wouldn't have a very good day. So we're going to continue to soak all of our pretzels. And once they've all been soaked, you're almost ready to put them into your oven. First things first, for a traditional pretzel, you're going to want to take some coarse sea salt and just sprinkle a little bit on each pretzel. Most of it should stick thanks to the lye. Speaking of the lye, when you're done with it, you could put it into a container and save it for another use. to dispose of it, since it's drain cleaner, you could put it down the sink provided you don't have a septic system. Now if you do choose to put it down the sink, do not put it down the disposal. The lye will dissolve some of the plastic and rubber parts in there, and you'll end up having to buy a new one. And that's something we don't want. Now you could stick with salt, or if you wanted to do something more interesting, you can get creative with just about any seasoning blend you like or other toppings. For these, I'm going to use a little bit of Old Bay seasoning, as well as some cheddar cheese. Now that these are ready, you can put them in your oven, 425 degrees, for 15 minutes. And after 15 minutes, our pretzels are done. They look great, don't they? In fact, I think I'm going to eat them right now. So I'm Bill, and on behalf of Bacon, I'd like to say thanks for watching.